Hi, I'm Marc Gagne.
And I'm Chris Corcoran, and you're listening to Tech Sales is for Hustlers. Tech Sales for Hustlers is a podcast where we catch up with memoryBlue alums and reminisce about their start in high-tech sales with us.
Let's go get some, Corcoran.
Gagne, you know I'm ready.
Craig Allen in the house, Corcoran.
From the Lou.
From the Lou, STO, baby.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us, just to familiarize yourself with the folks who don't know you that well, or in the fireside that we had with the whole company last month. Where are you from? A little bit about yourself.
So I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. I was born a twin. My brother's name is Greg. My mom is hilarious.
Greg. This is so awesome.
Yeah.
How many G's?
2 G's, Gregory.
G-R-E-G.
Mhm.
So 2.
Yeah.
But not G-R-E-G-G.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's hilarious.
So funny.
Greg and Craig.
It's annoying as it sounds. It was definitely that. But grew up to a single parent mother in the inner city of St. Louis, Missouri. The St. Louis was a pretty crazy place back then, candidly, growing up in the 90s, as most major cities were. A lot of violence, things like that. And so really my mom showed and stressed the importance of education to my twin brother and I. We saw her get her education. She was a teen mother. She was like 19 when she had us.
Wow.
So we saw her get her associate's degree, bachelor's, master's.
You remember that?
100%. I was at those graduations.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember like just seeing our life improve as she started getting more accolades, bought a house, things like that. You know, and she was, St. Louis is the show me state, right? Back home, we say you can show me better than you can tell me. And she showed me what the importance of education is. And so to it, kind of fast forward, my brother and I were involved in organizations. We started an organization at our high school called the Samina Society.
What's it called?
Samina Society, South Asian, Middle Eastern, North African Society. We called ourselves like the Brown Club.
And Brown Club for short.
Yeah. We had a shirt that was like, what can Brown do for you? Like a player in UPS.
Yeah.
That was kind of my first foray into DEI, which I'm still very passionate about today. But when my twin brother and I left St. Louis to attend college, he actually got a partial tuition scholarship to Xavier in New Orleans, Louisiana. And I got a full ride to Howard University, which brought me out to Washington, D.C.
A whole ride.
Let's back up a little bit.
Sure.
So,
Wow.
So maybe just to make fun of Greg a little bit. So you got a full ride.
I did.
Greg got a partial.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are twins. What happened? Like you got.
I mean,
like
we're competitive, but I came out on top. I was hungry, you know. So my scholarship came from, I was a national achievement finalist, which is like some very high percentage for African Americans that take the PSAT. I recall overall I was like the 92nd percentile. I had no clue that was possible. I just tended to take standardized tests well.
Yeah.
I didn't even study for it. Literally, they're like, take this test. It's going to make the school look good. I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
And it just worked out.
What did you think? Yeah. Well, here we are. So, you know, so you're growing up, your mom's getting these degrees, which probably has a profound impact on you,
100%.
right? What did you think you were going to do when you were young? What did you think you were going to do when you were growing up?
Yeah. So I thought I was going to be a lawyer, actually. In high school, I was in debate classes, did a few events for debate. I actually started working at a law firm when I was 15 years old through this internship program in St. Louis called the St. Louis Internship Program. Started out in the mail room. There was like a mock trial aspect also, which my team won. That was great.
There you go.
After kind of that summer was over, I was like, hey, you know, is there a space for me to stay on? And there was. So I ended up working there from, I guess, the summer after sophomore year through, I think, sophomore year of college.
Wow.
And being in the mailroom was great because I got to meet everyone. So I'm like this 15-year-old kid meeting like the co-owners of the firm, like people that bill like hundreds of dollars an hour.
Yeah.
It was wild. But through that, I actually influenced me on my major for college because, you know, I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to do what these people did. I would talk to some associates, things like that, talk to lawyers, partners. And I said, hey, what's the best might or major for college for a lawyer, for law. And they're like, pre-law isn't really a major. Everyone recommended English. And so I was an English major at Howard University.
Wow.
And I loved it. I mean, I very much am someone, again, kind of with that importance of education. My mom taught my twin and I to read. We could read at like 3. I remember we were part of like a weekly reading program. We get books all the time. So I loved reading. I'm a bit creative. I would write poems and stuff like that. It's been a while, but it was really the perfect major for me, despite having to read like a book a week and a paper every week at least.
Yeah, you're busy.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get to Howard. What'd you do in college? So when you're studying, were you on this track to be an attorney? Like, because you did a lot of things before you even worked for us.
Yeah. What did I do in college? I did a lot of things in college.
And did tech at any time, like you're in tech now, you're in cyber, not just tech, you're in cyber.
Yeah.
That was not even the kid from St. Louis, right?
Yeah.
That wanted to be an attorney. That wasn't anywhere in that.
I never even considered it, honestly. I think kind of growing up without a lot of money, there are very clear paths to making a lot of money, doctor, lawyer. So my brother was interested in being a doctor at the time. I was interested in being a lawyer at the time. And so, I had no interest in tech at all, candidly. I thought I'd take the LSAT and graduate and go to law school and kind of, probably land a corporate gig making a couple $100K a year at 25. And that's not what happened.
Tell us what happened. So you go into Howard and you get to graduation. What did you think you were going to do?
I was involved in a lot of organizations. I pledged a fraternity or joined a fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Beta Chapter is the second chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha.
Wow.
That was founded. We're the first expansion for an African-American Black Greek letter organization. My fraternity was founded at Cornell University. So my chapter is showed that we could expand. So my chapter is actually older than like every other Black Greek letter organization. We were founded a year before our sorors, et cetera, et cetera. Crazy alumni list. Donnie Hathaway, Edward Brooke, David Dinkins, Andrew Young, literally just from my fraternity, like not even like Howard and like the wider hat. It's nuts.
There's a lot of impressive people have come through Howard.
Yeah, 100%.
No doubt about that.
So that was a big mark on me. We also, at the fraternity, we hosted a conference called Brother to Brother. And so part of that was to help influence young Black males to go to college as part of like a wider fraternal organization or fraternal program. But anyways, when I was like the co-host of the Brother to Brother program, Dick Gregory was our keynote speaker, who's from St. Louis, Missouri. I got to just talk to him for an hour. That was awesome. What else was I? Sigma Tau Delta Honors English Organization, National Society of Collegiate Scholars. I was selected to Who's Who in American colleges and universities. I was in something called Target Hope. I was like the vice president of the Red Cross. I had a very full,
very active
life. Yeah, I won this first year that I, after crossing in 2007, we won our homecoming step show.
Really?
Yeah, it was great. Since then, we've only lost like one. I think my chapter's only lost like one step show since 2007.
Really?
Yeah, we set a standard. But my line is also history. We're the first centennial line of any Black Greek letter organization because unfortunately our Alpha chapter was shut down. So my chapter was founded in 1907 and I came through in 2007.
Very cool.
It's kind of crazy.
Super busy. You're a big man on campus.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, we have to make sure that our lives are filled with things. We have to make meaning out of our lives. And so I just did things that made sense to me that were passions of mine.
Are you looking to join an industry with unlimited professional opportunity? It has never been a better time than right now to start a lucrative career in high-tech sales. memoryBlue has launched hundreds of careers for accomplished high-tech sales professionals from our offices coast to coast, and right now, we're in hiring mode. Working with us will accelerate your professional growth and place you on a path to success early in your sales career. You'll get world-class training through the memoryBlue Academy program and sharpen those skills with ongoing mentorship and coaching from our seasoned sales leaders. memoryBlue is in expansion mode, and we have immediate openings in all of our offices. We have been named one of the fastest growing private companies in the U.S. by Inc. magazine for 8 straight years. Our award-winning culture has been recognized by third-party industry groups as the best in the business, as we routinely add unbelievable benefits and rewards for our team. To learn more and apply to any of our openings, visit memoryblue.com/careers today.
Tell me a little bit about that. We'll pause along your journey.
Sure.
What you just said about finding meaning in our lives. You talked about that, right? Because you got people listening to this who are SDRs, alums, people who are SDRs now.
Yeah.
This is some good life perspective.
Yeah.
For all of us, not just for them, for Chris and I.
Yeah, no, true. I'm an older man.
Yeah. You're not that old. We're old.
Well, compared to you, but compared to a lot of the people listening to the podcast,
Yes.
we're all older men, right?
Yes. But that's where you find wisdom.
100%.
Experience.
Life experience. And just kind of through that, I realized, like Howard University is an amazing school, but some people graduated and didn't enjoy it. But those people also only went to class. And so I wanted to make sure that I did things that I enjoyed, that I really kind of who I am as a person, right? Kind of one of my mantras is no one got where they are alone. And so to wit, we all owe each other something. So a lot of the organizations that I was in had like community service aspects, things like that. Because to me, at the end of the day, regardless of how successful I'll be, and I think I'll be wildly successful, I'm only getting started. Right?
Yeah.
I've been successful.
Yeah, no. Yeah, man. Yeah, no. I like you always have a mountain to climb.
Yeah, 100%. The mountains is always, it's ever present. But regardless of how successful I am, if I get there alone, I did it wrong. And so I'm the type to kind of pass keys and information to help people in their journey. And, if I can provide assistance, then I'll do that. So I did that in those organizations, and it's just fulfilling for me. It gives me the warm and fuzzies, and that's, I think life happens and life is hard, right? Yeah. But when you're doing something for yourself that fills your cup, it makes it a lot easier to weather the storm, and that's something I'm really revisiting now as a father, as a husband. Yep. I'm giving myself permission to make sure my cup is full because my family and community are better for it.
Yeah, I like how you said. I mean, this is kind of. It's no dog on people who just go to class, but people who are just going to class, they're kind of missing some big picture. You might miss the bigger picture.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like here, right? Like the people that you are in class with are the people you're doing cold calls next to. Who knows where they're going to be, right? I mean, I have a friend who we were in an organization together. She launched a startup, sold it to Google.
Wow.
And now she's like some high up position in Google. Yeah. Even if I just look at my line brothers in my fraternity, I have a head of creator partnerships at Snapchat. He was poached from Google. I have like the top TSA agent at BWI. I have like a VP at CVS. I have a startup founder in the healthcare space. Like that's not even the half of it. I have a general manager of a hotel that's going to open in DC, coming from being a general manager at a hotel in New York. Doctors, lawyers, they're just my buddies. Yeah. And here it's going to be VPs of sales, entrepreneurs, things of that matter, startup founders as well. Yeah. So like get out there and make some friends. You'll be better for it. Your network is your network, right?
Yes, that's right. Yes, that's right. All right. So
he's at Howard just taking care of business.
knocking it out.
Doing my best.
Knocking it out. And then you're inching up on graduation. LSATs, law school, like what talk us through what happened.
Yeah, sure. So I took the LSAT. I don't really take it super seriously as I should have. I'm a guy that tests well, right? Like standardized tests, whatever. Like fine.
Just give me the number 2 pass.
Exactly. Just like
I'm not a guy who tests well. So I'm like sweating bullets and patients strolling in, like sitting down in a chair.
No, I mean I had like a LSAT book, like the LSAT for Dummies or something like that. I was looking at logic books, learned a lot about fallacies. That was cool. And so I took the LSAT senior year. This was, what was it? I think 2008 going into 2009. I did fine. I got like a 155. It was like inside of 180. It was like in the 70 some odd percentile. So not terrible. I could have got into law school.
Just showing up.
Yeah, I mean, I did a little slightly more than just showing up.
Yeah,
I definitely didn't take it as seriously as I could have. But anyways, like that score just really wasn't up to my standards. That's the lowest I've ever tested on a standardized test bar 9. It's the LSAT, sure, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But so my plan, like after graduating, was like, okay, I'll take some time, I'll save up, I'll pay for an LSAT class, like $1,000, and then I'll just take a gap year, and then go back to law school with the higher score, ideally with make some money, right? But I graduated in 2009. Now, I'm someone that's been skeptical of the news before, like this fake news, MAGA foolishness.
Yeah.
Candidly, because I'm a Black man in America. You know, growing up in St. Louis, I noticed that there was just a very negative bias scant towards African Americans. I noticed that when there was like crime, it would always like plaster a Black person's face on the news. And then there would also be like question marks or like no faces provided for other crime. And then whenever I would invariably find out, that person was white, you know? And so I was hearing rumblings of 2009, the crash. I'm like, the news lies. There's no way it's that bad.
Yeah.
And it was horrendous. I graduated with like no job lined up. I was unemployed for like 3 months.
Yeah.
I was living on my brother's couch. I was still doing like community service. I was actually doing some organizing on Howard's campus for the Affordable Care Act. And my brother and my twin was like, hey, bro, like you're doing all this work for free and you're on my couch. I got to pay rent. Like, what's going on? And I was like, you're right. I'm sorry, Greg.
Why was he here? Why was he in D.C.?
Sure. I buried the lead there. So again, he started in New Orleans. We started college in 2004. So 2005, literally my mom and I dropped him off at college. Like 2 weeks later, Katrina hit. So he was a survivor, or he is, I should say, a survivor of Hurricane Katrina, who was in New Orleans the whole time. My uncle, my mom's brother, also went to Xavier. He had a friend that like lived on the East Fayetteville Pontchartrain train. So my brother stayed there. Like tickets were too expensive for my mom to fly him out. I think when my dad realized that it was just too late, flights were booked. The universe, I mean, there was like no plan. Every single ideological state apparatus you would expect to support you with impending disaster let him down. Family, school, the government. He even had a friend, crazy story. One of his friends like lived in Florida, and this guy had a car, and my brother's like, hey, you know, I know you're leaving. I really don't have anywhere to go. Can I come with you? And to leave the hurricane, it's going to be a Category 5. And this guy's like, no, I'm sorry, man, I don't have space. And like a guitar was in his front seat. And so, you know, kind of fast forward, after the hurricane, my mom was able to go down, pick him up. I think he flew to Colorado, actually. And then from Colorado, he flew to St. Louis. And then Howard University was accepting Hurricane Katrina survivors, called refugees back then, ridiculous. But for a free tuition. And so he was like kind of praying about it. And he had because Harvard was doing the same thing. And I had a good buddy at Harvard. And he had a dream about Howard University. And so he came to Howard sophomore year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Unexpectedly. Yeah.
Can't keep the twins apart.
Unfortunately, you can't. He lives in Baltimore right now.
Great. So you're on his couch, volunteering, community service. He's like, Greg, make some money, man.
Yes, I get a job. What are you doing? So yeah, he had actually been working in restaurants like during undergrad. And so, you know, he shared it was a way to make a quick buck. So I was like, I'll do the same thing. Like, I need to make money. I need to pay rent. I got to figure some things out. So I started working at Ruby Tuesday on 14th Street at the time in Columbia Heights, which is no longer there anymore. And I fell in love with it.
Were you serving or?
I started out serving. And then after that, I was bartending. And actually, my first foray into hospitality was the summer of 2008. That was the first time I didn't go back home to St. Louis for the summer, when I didn't go back to the law firm. So I actually was a host at Zaytinya, and that was a lot of fun. It was like my wife at the time, she worked at Cafe Atlantic. My wife now, I'm sorry. Friend at the time. She worked at Cafe Atlantico. A lot of her friends, a lot of our mutual friends worked together as Zaytinya between Cafe Atlantico. It was a crazy summer. It was so much fun. Also, I realized keeping up with the Joneses is not smart. It was a good lesson there. But so I did hospitality, then got back into it at Ruby Tuesday to pay my bills, and fell in love. You know, I realized that I really only wanted to do law to make money. And I came to the realization that, you know, 40 hours a week and doing something you don't like or more is a lot of time of your life. And stress will kill you, you know. And so might as well do something that makes you happy. I really enjoyed interacting with people, meeting people, making jokes, making people feel comfortable and welcome. And I decided to pursue that as a career path.
Tell us. Tell us. Tell us, because that's a little not like, I think you really believe in yourself and you're comfortable in the decisions you make. So and you, right? Like I'm lost off for me.
Yeah.
So just walk us through what you were doing and then how you ended up at memoryBlue. So that's going to take us to a little bit where you are now.
Let me just interject. So just pause for a second. So, okay. Incredibly intelligent.
Oh, thank you.
Full ride to Howard. Okay. On the path, all years at a law firm.
Yeah. I had an office.
Right. So super smart, super accomplished, graduating college, great college. Maybe law's not for you, but you say, okay, I want to pursue hospitality.
Yeah.
Where you don't even need any of that.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
How did you get that past your mom?
I don't know she was like, my family was very much, kind of when I made the decision of I'm going to figure out and gain the skills to be an entrepreneur and kind of reduce my risk by getting paid to learn instead of using my own money, which I didn't have at the time. Anyways. She was supportive, but she was always like, well, you can still be a doctor. You can still be a lawyer. My uncle was telling me that for a very long time. But my mom was in St. Louis. It's not like she wasn't sending me money and supporting me. I was supporting myself at the time. I was an adult at the tender age of 22. And my brother at the time was my parachute. But when I started in restaurants, I had no parachute. It was me and it was me, And so really, what could she say? Not much.
And so you wanted to do that. Was there a vision for where you wanted to go with it?
Yeah.
Talk us about that.
My plan was to work my way up from being, I guess at the time, server, bartender, and then kind of learn as much as I can about the industry and then kind of parlay that into being an entrepreneur. So from Ruby Tuesday, I went to Matchbox. This is 2010, I think. I started at Matchbox as a server, made great money. I was at the Capitol Hill location.
One of the hottest Italian restaurants, fun, cool, hip Italian restaurants at the time in the city.
It was amazing. Yeah.
In the area, really.
I would say Italian restaurant.
You tell me.
Insane. The pizza was so good. It was ridiculously good. Thin crust pizza.
Pizza and burgers.
Pizza and maybe burgers.
Okay,
that's what we were known for. But we also had just very good food. It was an upscale, casual, family restaurant. I think there were only 3 locations at the time. And now it's exploded. There was Chinatown, there was Capitol Hill. Randomly, there's one in Palm Springs, California. I think when I started, Ted's Bulletin had opened a little bit earlier that year. But I just saw the vision for the company. There was just a rapid explosion of growth. And so I was thinking I could hitch my wagon to this company and just start learning. And so I told my general manager, I told the owners, hey, I'm interested in management. I know you all are growing. And so I want to throw my hat in the ring. And so I served for a little bit under a year before being promoted to an assistant manager at Matchbox. From there, I worked at the Capitol Hill location is where I started. Worked in the, of course, front of the house, doing schedules, training, things like that. I then pivoted to the Chinatown location. Worked under a fantastic GM, one of the best people I've ever worked for to this day. His name is Chris Schaller. He's no longer with the company, but he's just an amazing man. Just really taught me a lot about management and working with people, just tightening up. It was great. And just started learning more there, doing schedules for this crazy big location. I worked with the host stand. I think it was 40 employees. I would man the host stand during Caps games. So imagine any restaurant in Chinatown during the Capitals game. Matchbox was around the corner.
It's right there.
But yeah, I really kind of learned every aspect of front of the house training at Matchbox. Did that for about 2.5 years or so. And then I ended up going back to Chinatown. Or not Chinatown, excuse me, Capitol Hill. The executive chef at the time was leaving. She was like, hey, I'm actually going to open a restaurant. I was like, hey, congratulations. Love you so much. Let me know how I can support. And so she was gone. And a few months after she left, she said, hey, we're looking for a general manager. Would you be interested in interviewing? And I was like, I would be. And so I did. I got the role. And I had really put those other pieces together in Matchbox. Inventory, training, things like that.
Oh, my gosh.
And so I had a lot of the pieces together. But then there was building out a team, hiring, firing, paying bills. I ended up doing all that. And it was rough at first. There were a lot of hard lessons. I realized, really just how to take criticism and feedback, which is just listen, like I wanted to be successful, and being defensive in a work setting, I knew wouldn't get me there.
Yeah.
And so sometimes there would be some tough conversations. One time I was like late paying the rent, and it's crazy. Like the owner of the building actually was like an investor. He lived like down the street. And I think I for some reason didn't get the check in time, and he just charged us. I'm like, bro, you could have just walked down the street. Like, but that was my fault. It wasn't on him. It was on me.
Yeah.
And so I had to learn that and eat crow. So I realized that someone's giving me feedback. Don't get defensive, because then I'm not listening. I'm stunting my growth. So listen, digest, understand the feedback. And if it's wrong, have a conversation later. But sometimes I would, like I don't think not defending yourself isn't smart, because leadership isn't with you all the time. It's very easy to have things wrong. But that really helped me grow and kind of was pivotal to my future career. So did that for a few years, grew up from I was there pre-day one, grew from $0 to $2 million in sales. Year over year. We grew sales about 10%. We profited about 9% for the ownership team. It was like 3 of them. Trained the general manager, hired, of course, the general manager that came in after me. And then I knew that the time commitment that it took, I wouldn't be able to build my own business. And so I left, went to Blue Duck Tavern at the Park Hyatt, which at the time had a Michelin star, took a step back in roles, started serving there to really start building my business. I was working with a fraternity brother.
Tell us about your business.
So the business
is transition in there.
So the business is called Brotherhood Smoke. Really, it's
Brotherhood Smoke.
Brotherhood Smoke.
Brotherhood Smoke.
So my business partners at the time were actually 2 of my fraternity brothers from Beta chapter, no less, with Alpha Phi Alpha. So when my fraternity was founded in 1906, there was like a just lavish banquet. And part of that banquet, like one of the last courses, was like a Brotherhood Smoke, like cigars. Mm-hmm. And so we named our restaurant that, but also not restaurant, it was like we did pop-ups around the city, basically a little catering. We're Brotherhood Smoke because we focus on barbecue. Being from St. Louis, barbecue is a passion of mine. DC did not have a good barbecue scene, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so I just thought it would be kind of a place where there's less risk to start. Also, barbecue isn't polarizing. Everyone eats it. Yeah. So I was just kind of thinking of what's the best business to start that would kind of give me the most kind of buzz, and so I leveraged relationships I made at the restaurant I was a GM of, Brooklyn's Finest, because I met and got to know the owner of DC Brow, the owner of Green Hat Distilling, great relationships with 1-8, and I ended up doing pop-ups at like various breweries and distilleries. One of my old bosses, Solly, who owns Solly's Tavern, also on Blue Duck, he let us take over the kitchen on Mondays. So we were doing that while I was at Blue Duck Tavern. Ended up leaving Blue Duck Tavern. I don't even know if it's worth getting into. I'll be candid. So my daughter was born. She was born in June. And again, I was a server at Blue Duck Tavern after having been a general manager, right? So fast forward, it's my daughter's first Christmas coming up. It's my daughter's first Thanksgiving coming up. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to work those. I wanted to be there for her. Mm-hmm. Literally, when she was born, I put a request out for that time. And Thanksgiving is like one of the biggest days for the restaurant. Yeah. And it gets closer and closer. It's been months I put this request in. We get closer and closer to that time. I'm like, hey, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. Hey, do I have my time? I don't know. I haven't done the schedule yet. To me, that was unacceptable. I know what it takes to do this schedule. People have lives to live. You have to be considerate of that as a leader, and you're not. Mm-hmm. And so I left. This company wasn't worth me missing out on those first for my first child. Yep. And so I ended up leaving. I went to the Conrad. So I was working at the Conrad while doing pop-ups, things like that. Okay. Fast forward to March 2020. All right. COVID. This is where we start to come into play. Yeah, 100%. So you're living that life.
Tough life.
Working hard. Yeah. Started your business. Learning, like we talk about experience, like the rent paying. Chris and I have stories like that from business too, taking feedback. And then birth of your daughter, and then COVID comes around. So talk to us about that, and then then want to get to kind of how you worked with us, because COVID was tough for people in hospitality, restaurant world. It was kind of good memoryBlue for finding those people.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right? We never would have worked for us.
I remember it like it was yesterday.
You want to talk about it, or you want to Craig?
Well, no, I'll jump in at the appropriate time.
Go.
I'll say what's interesting, right, is I never would have come here if not for COVID, but someone I worked with at Matchbox, Dennis, what is Dennis's last name?
Oh, Dennis. GMU Dennis.
GMU Dennis.
Yeah, he went to Matchbox too.
He did. He was an assistant manager under me. Anyways, Dennis O'Neill.
Yes.
Good
Shout out, Dennis.
Shout out to Dennis.
Westchester, PA.
Shout out to his wife, Ketrin. Shout out to their new child. Big fans of them. We all worked together in Matchbox. But anyways, he ended up working here after Matchbox. And I had no idea that he worked here. But so anyways, COVID hit, right? The country was just devastated. No one knew if we would live or die. I think psychologically it was a wild toll. My wife was a teacher. She was working. Literally, I think the anniversary is coming up like next week. But I was laid off, and it was weird because
from the Conrad,
and it was like, so the Conrad's a hotel. I worked in the restaurant Estuary inside.
You're at the high end of DC. Like, I mean, I never went there.
White tablecloth, super high end.
I wish I had gone. I've never been to a restaurant in DC like that.
Really? You haven't gone to Michelin restaurants in DC?
I don't think I've been to a Michelin restaurant in my life.
Oh, you gotta change that, brother.
I know, but you're operating. It doesn't get any.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a DC homeowner.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, I have to make sure to pay my mortgage. I was just very fortunate. Two, I didn't make a lot of money in hospitality. I think the most I made was probably about 55, 60K up until working at like nicer restaurants. I lived like a college kid. I was cheap.
Yeah.
Like I remember working at Matchbox, my salary was $45,000. Sometimes I would save $1,000 a month. Yeah. So I parlayed that into, I used the IRA, took out, you could take out like 10K for your IRA as a down payment without tax penalty. So went in and bought a house with my wife. So like, if wherever I'm going to work, I need to pay these bills. A house is an incredible asset, especially in DC.
Yes.
So that's why I hitched my wagon to these high-end restaurants. Which worked out, but until it didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Conrad is a hotel. I was in the restaurant inside the hotel, and you see like we're like, oh, COVID, and like fake news. I don't know. Like there's this weird thing coming out of China, and I'm very much a news junkie. I heard about it in December and kind of was following, and then we see like hotel occupancy just like drastically getting less and less. And like I was a morning server, and so like, instead of serving people, I'm just like cleaning doorways and things like that with disinfectant. And then I was laid off. And that same weekend I was laid off. My daughter's daycare shut down. But my wife was a teacher. She had to continue doing her job virtually. And so I just had to do like an immediate pivot. My wife and I didn't even have a conversation. I was just like, I guess I'll kind of do whatever I can to support my wife because she's working and support my daughter who now isn't in school. So I was like a chef, making all the meals for the family, doing HelloFresh and stuff like that. I kind of created a curriculum for my daughter. During the day, we would watch like YouTube videos where, days of the week, months of the year. I would do that in French as well because I learned a little bit of French in high school and college. I was a French minor. And just kind of, take you really nice walks, which was great. Like kind of before stress came, I was making more money unemployed, which after a decade-long career working in Michelin restaurants was insulting.
Wow.
And so what happened?
Yeah. How did that make you feel?
It was like a punch to the gut, to be honest. Like I had been a general manager of a restaurant.
That's a tough job.
Exactly. Like restaurants have some of the lowest profit margins, bar none. And to be able to have done that successfully, I got an award for it. Zag at 30 under 30, working Michelin-starred restaurants, of which I worked in like 2 separate Michelin-starred restaurants. One I'm not naming. It's a waste of our time. There's a little bad blood there. Anyways. And so to be making more in unemployment was just like insane, I just couldn't believe it. The only reason I was making more is because since there was so much devastation throughout the country, think there had been a vote to like add an additional 500 or something like that a week to unemployment. And so like we were able to do some house projects, but I was just like, wow, this is crazy. And I knew, just due to the extreme dysfunctionality of our legislative body, that the amount of money I was making was not sustainable, wasn't tenable. And so I knew as well, or rather I didn't trust that hospitality would return to where it was, to in a space that would allow me to continue to pay my mortgage, because my wife couldn't do it by herself. DC mortgages are expensive, you know? And so I started kind of like, it was maybe like a month later. So I guess like around April, May time, I started just applying to random jobs. Ended up speaking to a former roommate of mine. He was saying, hey, bro, you know, I know you're looking. A guy by the name of Peter Carr, I love Peter. But he was like, hey, I know you're looking. You know, you've been excellent in hospitality. A lot of those skills transfer to sales. And he was like, you know, I know if I've been successful in sales, you can do it. I know you can. And he was like, you know, in this career, I've never made less than 6 figures. And I was like, wow, that's funny, because I've never made 6 figures. So I just started kind of looking at and applying and interviewing for like kind of various sales roles, insurance and like direct to consumer and things like that. And I ended up getting like an offer or two, but you know, like again, like we were still figuring out COVID back in like March, May, April 2020. And so like direct to consumer with, I think my daughter was like 8 months at the time, maybe 10 months, was not tenable. Like meeting people at a Walmart, even if I can make 100K, I'm like, I'm not going to potentially kill myself and my family. Ended up zooming out and kind of just big picture looking at sales, seeing where I could make some money, because I just hadn't really made good money in my career. And I saw how like tech just went off the rails, like Amazon went crazy. Microsoft was just like up. And I was like, okay, well, tech is something I need to hitch my wagon to. If my industry is devastated, but tech has been successful. So started looking at tech sales. At the same time, again, kind of backing up to the dysfunctionality of our legislative body, they didn't renew that kind of extra that I was making on unemployment insurance. But kind of simultaneously, there was legislation with like 99%, 100% bipartisan participation passed to basically improve our country's cybersecurity posture. Or at least as I know it now. I didn't know it back then. But I was like, okay, well, if this is something that our government can actually agree on, that's an industry that makes sense. And then so I kind of been looking for companies that can help me transition and apply to various tech companies. I found memoryBlue on LinkedIn. I applied. I think Libby Gladys reached out.
Yeah, Libby.
And then I didn't hear anything. No ding.
I know.
So I remember this vividly.
Okay, here we go.
Vivid. If you've ever been in sales, you know when you get a bluebird inbound lead.
Yes.
It was on a weekend. I was on my phone.
Yep.
And I see this application come in. And I saw Howard University.
Yes.
We don't get a lot of people from Howard applying here.
No.
Right?
Right.
Then I saw Blue Duck Tavern.
Yep.
Which I knew super high-end white tablecloth, great hospitality
place.
Server. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was immediately like, we need to give this guy the white glove treatment.
Yes.
We need to give him white glove treatment. And then Libby took it from there.
Libby took it from there, and then she did it because I think you all were on a hiring freeze. Like, no shade to Libby. I think there was just like a freeze, right? And so
this is all during COVID.
Yeah.
Who knows? You know, we thought we were turning into zombies.
Oh no, 100%. I mean, you all did what you had to do to allow us to stay here, right? To maintain your businesses and your families and your mortgages. You know, and I didn't hear anything. My wife was like, hey, Craig, what's going on, bro? It's been like weeks. Like, you might want to do something else. I don't know.
So at first it was Greg giving you a hard time.
Of course, I mean, we live together, right? We're raising this child. Like she is. You know, it's like, but really, I just saw the vision of memoryBlue, and I was like, I understand, but I'm going to go for it. And I think maybe some weeks later, let's see, I started in June, so I guess May, Libby got back to me. She's like, hey, sorry, there's a hiring freeze, but we do want to get you in. And then I started the interview process, and I was hired.
Were you working remote to start?
I was definitely working remote to start, which was interesting. I think y'all sent me a laptop. I was like, this is cool. did the training program. Started out with like Josh Klein. That was my guy.
Josh Klein, boom.
Bing.
Yeah.
Josh Klein was pivotal to my memoryBlue career. But yeah, after training,
Did he start with you or?
Yeah, we were in the same training class, and then we were also on Nick Perry's team together.
Swaggy P. Swaggy P.
Yeah.
The notorious Swaggy P.
Yeah.
What did you think you were getting into?
I mean, I
You kind of, because you have experience, you have people, and you have people to talk to.
Yeah.
But did you kind of know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and why did you choose to do this with us?
Yeah. So honestly, I talked to Dennis about memoryBlue because I saw that he worked here, and so he really he helped me understand what the role was. I didn't say, but another friend of mine, Christian Irish, he works for who is it? He's a principal customer success manager at like Slack Salesforce.
Okay.
Now, so he let me know about tech sales because he was a BDR at Oracle when he started.
Okay.
So yeah, I knew what I was getting myself into.
Okay.
And then I saw the vision that you all train, like, there are a lot of organizations that want you to pay into pivoting into a career, right?
Yeah.
Or when you go to your next role, we're going to take some percentage of your income.
Yeah.
It's shady to me.
Yeah.
And I saw that you all are not about that you help people find their next roles as well, that you train them and then pair them with tech companies, and that you have a well-regarded training program.
Yeah.
So very much I thought I knew what I was getting myself into. I think, I had the podcast back then, so I would listen to it all the time.
Yep.
And I was reading books suggested by, again, my buddy Christian. So I read like Challenger Sale.
Yep.
I started following like Kevin Dorsey on LinkedIn. I just really dove into sales. I became a sponge and tried to learn as much as I could. And it was still hard. Yeah.
What did your wife think about all this stuff?
At first she was like, Craig, bro, I don't know, man. Like we're taking, like I took a pay cut. I think when I was in hospitality, I was making probably $75K.
Yeah.
And I think the base here was like 32 and a half or something like that, 35. I don't know at the time. But
it was a big cut.
It was a huge cut. But I knew, I'm a guy that believes in myself. Despite growing up in poverty, unfortunately, I just had a really strong community. I remember going to church, they would call me lawyer, they would call my twin doctor. I've never not been believed in.
Yeah.
I believed in myself from there.
Yeah.
I think when you talk about inner cities, when you talk about areas that are impoverished, there's very rarely, I would say almost never on a wider scale, there's always a conversation about deficits, right? Which tend to be a result of policy, candidly, but there's never a talk about the love and support that exists in those communities. And without that love and support, I wouldn't have the belief that I have in myself at all. And so I took that here, right? I'll pivot and switch careers however many times I need to figure it out. I believe that I'm going to be successful. I have the drive, I think, and the intelligence to do so. So yeah, I started here and, I finished training, started cold calls. I think I set like one inbound meeting that first month and I was struggling. It was so bad.
Struggle busted.
It was hitting me left and right. And I remember I was talking to Josh Klein, who was crushing it. That man, his mouth game is sick. Oh my gosh, it's so good.
He's smooth.
He's so smooth. I remember he said something about like he booked a deal and he was like, I think the prospect was worried about change management. And he was like, yeah, man, like everybody wants to buy the puppy, but no one wants to deal with the dog. And I was like, bro, what?
Because Josh was younger too, right?
Yeah.
So he had a naivety, which is good.
Hot shot.
Yeah, hot shot, right?
Yeah. And his dad was an entrepreneur as well. So I think he grew up with that. But I was just like, wow. And so we were it was.
How did you hear that? Were we remote at the time?
No. So eventually we moved in office.
Okay. How long after you started did we move into the office?
Maybe about a month.
Okay.
Or two.
Was it harder in isolation? Or
not really. I mean, like I think Nick did a pretty good job of building culture.
Okay.
To just have like sometimes meetings, I think on Friday where we would just like kind of talk and catch up. It wasn't like work related at all, which was really nice.
That sounds like Swaggy P.
Yeah, very intentional. I think a lot of managers kind of miss the human piece. And like at the end of the day, we're not machines. You manage humans. Treat people as such. And what I found in my career, you're going to get more from those people. Make sure business is more successful because people want to protect a business that protects them. And the antithesis is also true, right? People that will destroy a business. Anyways, great job. Shout out to Nick. And so Josh pulled me aside. It was like a Friday afternoon, like I think probably like 4:30, 5 o'clock. He said, "Hey bro, what's going on? Like, I see you're not booking meetings." And I'm like, "I don't know, man. Like, it's just really frustrating. You have all this stuff that's like, I'm like, blah, blah, blah. Mortgage and took a crazy pay cut." And he's like, "Sounds like you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself, man." And I was like, "Wow, you're right. I've never even thought about it." But like, all the things I was putting on myself, right? Because I want to be successful. I want to make a lot of money. I want to leave a legacy for my family, because I don't want anyone that comes after me, comes from me, to experience the poverty that I experienced. How deep to go? Like, I remember growing up, like my house didn't have like central air. Like, we didn't, so it would be winters in St. Louis. The 90s were significantly colder than it is now. And I remember like warming up, like we would have like heaters and like would open the stove sometimes. Like, it was nuts, and I never want anyone from me to experience that. And I know I have to work hard for it, and kind of considering that this career could help me do that, I just put a lot of pressure on myself, and I realized I wasn't doing the job, right? I wasn't trying to add value. I was trying to book meetings so I can make commission to pay my bills. And so after that conversation with Josh.
Yeah, we talked about this.
We did, yeah.
Keep going.
No.
How you figured out the meeting.
Yeah.
To explain that, break that down for like people listening, particularly the SDRs who are in this chair now. Sure. About that realization. You kind of help.
So because I just really voraciously became a student to kind of bridge that, or a student of sales to bridge that delta of being a career changer, because after 2 years of hospitality, I was an expert, right? Yeah. And so to go from being an expert to a novice was hard, and I want to gain as much experience and knowledge as I can. So I remember, I think it was a podcast, and it was Trish Bertuzzi on the podcast. I think maybe it was Make It Happen Mondays with John Barrows.
Yeah.
And he was like, "What would you tell someone just starting out as an SDR?" Because she is like the SDR guru,
She's
right?
the queen of the industry.
Exactly.
The matriarch.
Exactly.
There's no doubt about that.
And so her answer to that question was just focus on having a conversation.
Yeah.
And it was just so simple. And I'm like, I could do that. Like, I would talk with thousands of people,
That's
right?
your superpower.
Like, that's my superpower.
Yeah.
I've served celebrities. I've served billionaires. I've served homeless people. I can talk and connect with anyone.
Yes.
And so when I started doing that and then truly listening, I became a lot more successful as an SDR. I ended up going in President's Club here, started booking meetings left and right. I rose to the top of my team, even surpassing Josh, which was awesome. And I was just doing really, really well, just booking a lot of meetings. And then Jack Kloss joined the team, and Lauren Granatelli joined the team.
Ding, ding.
They were beasts on a whole different level than me.
You had a strong squad.
A strong squad. But, honestly, being in my, like I said at the time, early 30s, having worked since I was 15, I'm like, I can't come in and not perform. Like, these are my peers, but they're not my peers also.
Right. Yes.
Like my mentor at the time, Spencer Lee, ding, my guy.
Yep.
He was like, later he had told me that he was like nervous about having me as a mentee, because he's like, this guy's older than me. I don't know. He gave me a lot of guidance, a lot of great tips. And then actually I remember the journey of booking my first meeting when I was off to the races. I told Spencer, I was like, hey bro, you know what? I had a great talk with Josh. I realized I need to just focus on the conversation. I'm going to take the pressure off myself to a degree, right? I'm not thinking about kind of the wider things, but also I'm going to motivate myself, and I'm not going to eat lunch until I book a meeting.
Here we go.
And literally later that day, I booked a meeting, and that was observations.
memoryBlue alumni, is your company actively trying to fill open sales roles with high-achieving ballers? The memoryBlue Rising Stars program is a unique outplacement service designed to benefit our alumni and our tenured sales development professionals at the same time. Most of the SDRs that work on our client campaigns are under contract for a specific amount of time. Once the SDR's contract expires, he or she may wish to explore various new career opportunities. We call these well-trained hustlers our rising stars, and this is where you come in. Every single member of our alumni network has full access to hire our rising stars into their current company at zero cost. Whenever we have a new rising star available, we'll drop our full alumni group an email letting you know about the opportunity. This benefit gives alumni and their current employers a huge edge in closing the sales development talent gap. It also gives you the inside track on cashing in any referral fees associated with referring new hires. If you're looking for tomorrow's sales stars today, head over to memoryblue.com/alumni.
What I love about that is you put that in place on yourself.
Yeah.
It wasn't Nick Perry.
No.
It wasn't Spencer.
No.
It wasn't your client.
No.
It was you
Yeah.
managing yourself.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Do you know how brave you need to be to get into this job? I mean, COVID was the impetus.
Yeah.
But to get into this job with his track record of success, he had attained the highest level of where you could get in hospitality.
Yeah.
In the role you were in, right? And while you're doing all this, married, kid, house,
Yeah.
right? I mean, maybe
Traveling,
you're having fun. Yeah, traveling. You do all sorts of cool shit all the time.
Trying.
And then I'm going to take a deep breath and come out to memoryBlue and work with a bunch of, young-ish. There are some older people who have more experience like you, but not that many.
Yeah. Andrew Palmer.
Palmer. That's right.
Yeah.
But job's hard.
Hard. Ooh, hard.
It's not an easy job.
Not at all.
So it started to click. So what were you looking at doing next? Because it was clicking.
Yeah.
What was it? And let's talk about the cyber thing. Because when we were here, we talked about how I hear belly aching all the time from SDRs.
Sure.
And I'm not saying this with resentment. I love my SDRs.
Yeah.
Right. That's why we still do this. So let's talk about let's start with cyber actually. Because you're in cyber now.
Yeah.
But just give us, and you touched on it, give us why, if you're in SDR memory, but why you should want to be in cyber. Even though it's the hardest.
It is
harder.
certainly hardest, to be honest. I mean, the things that SDRs do, doing cold outbound outreach, LinkedIn, phones, that's the same thing attackers do to steal information, to hack organizations and companies. So the people that you're calling, if you're an SDR in a cyber campaign, have a right to be extraordinarily cautious.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I make sure I'm a student of the field I'm in, right? So I listened to a podcast called Cybersecurity Headlines. As an example, one thing that people are doing, they're creating fake Zoom and Google meetings that actually are malware. So it's incredibly difficult. Crazy. But really, if you're in sales, in tech sales, and you're in cyber, because cyber can protect from the rooter to the tutor, right, end to end. So you just get a fantastic understanding of tech as a whole, right? And especially my company now, Darktrace, which has some of the best tech out there from a cybersecurity standpoint, bar none. I mean, we're in email, we cover network, we cover operational technology. With network comes IoT, Internet of Things. We cover endpoints. Now we cover attack surface management. We now have remediation technology, and so those are all things that I have to learn about. Where in cybersecurity, a lot of companies are just kind of single point solutions, only email, only network, only et cetera. But the more you learn and understand tech and how things are deployed and things like that, it makes you much more marketable wherever you go. If you understand networks and things like that, you can understand fintech, no problem.
Yeah.
If you understand the cloud, then you don't just have to stay in cyber. You can talk AWS, Azure, what have you. Cyber is huge.
I think the common theme with what's made Craig so successful is this thirst of knowledge and learning, right? And you said it a couple of times, you have to treat it like a craft. A lot of people don't think it's a craft. It's definitely a skill that has to be developed. But then you listen to the podcast, sales podcast, cyber podcast, right? You're obviously a spiritual person too. So you got a lot of stuff going on in your mind, which makes you good at the role. So you're at memoryBlue, you've kind of figured it out. What do you think you wanted to do next? Because now the cool thing about working here, I think, is you're exposed to, you're sitting next to people on other clients, other campaigns. You're working with your client. You're seeing, you see people leave. Some get hired by their clients. Some get an outplay. Some people stick around for a little while and dip their toe in something else. What did you think you wanted to do, and what'd you do? So
I wanted to be an account executive. I had been working almost 20 years by the time I got here, and so I know most people went from being a BDR to a BDR, but am someone who wanted to better myself. I knew I wanted to do cybersecurity again because that's like the one thing our government could agree on.
Yeah.
We can't even agree on January 6th, which I was here at that time, which was crazy.
Yeah.
But again, they agreed.
I remember seeing the footage in the lobby.
Right. I'm like, I have to drive home past this. I'm like,
Yeah,
what?
I know. It was just like down the street.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
And so I knew I wanted to do cyber. I actually was a super biller here. And so my initial client was Suki, an AI digital assistant in the healthcare space. Absolutely phenomenal technology. And then I started working with another company. I think they shut down the US side, but Sundown Solutions.
Yep.
They were like a Microsoft VAR. So that helped me start understanding the cybersecurity space. When I was transitioning out of the role, I did some biz dev for Rapid7 as well.
Yes, you did.
Did some solid work in that campaign.
Taking advantage of the opportunities, Corcoran.
Yeah.
Nobody, super billing is volunteer.
Oh, it's tough.
Right? It's difficult, right? But he's reliving the pain right now as we
Man,
speak.
I'm like, I would. So also when I started, my wife was fortunate enough to support me. Like I would be one of the first ones here, one of the last ones to leave. We saw each other a whole lot.
That's right.
That's right.
And then kind of as I got more used to it, I didn't need to do that as much, of course. But when I was super billing, it would have to be like 200-300 calls a day. It'd be me and Maria Pineda here. Just thugging it out.
Yes.
Ding. But so fast forward, I knew I wanted to be an account executive. I knew I wanted to do cybersecurity. I did direct hire for 5 minutes here. I was so bad at it. Mainly because I was trying to find people like myself, right? Like evangelize the benefits of tech sales. I remember prospecting someone with a PhD. She's like, bro, I'm not doing a 30K base. What? You're insane. I have a PhD. I'm like, all right, cool. Enjoy your PhD, buddy.
But you got to try stuff.
Yeah.
That's the great thing. So you dip your toe in the water with direct hire and you get a perspective and then you learn and you take the knowledge and you move on.
I did. I think a good lesson there was being true to myself, right?
Yes.
Like I'm someone that likes, if I find a good place to work with a good culture, a place that you can grow, I would tell my friends, and I've hired friends, having been in hiring positions, right? And so I thought I would want to do that as a career because it is something that I liked and was passionate about, but it just wasn't. And I think I did it for a month. I recruited like nobody. I got some people in pipeline, but no one worked out. And I just remember realizing that wasn't really my plan, right? That plan happened talking to you, talking to Tommy Gassman, kind of hearing oh, you can make $300,000 tomorrow. I was like, holy, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And certainly some people are making crazy cash. But ultimately, I've never been one to try to make fast money. I've always had a long-term gain, right? Because I could have made more money in hospitality. Had to work nights, I could have made $100K, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I want to build the skills that would sustain that. That's why I was a GM, which is not as well paid as bartending on weekends, right?
Yep.
And so then I realized, okay, Craig, stop chasing the quick money. You want to do cybersecurity. You want to be an account executive. I told Bones that day, and then he was like, all right. And then he was like, Marc wants to talk to you. And I was like, what? Because I knew there was a possibility of me being let go. I didn't think it was a strong possibility, but I knew it was possible. But again, I think I owed it to you all. I owed it to Bones to not take up a seat that I didn't really want. And I ended up, I was sweating, speaking with you, speaking with Tommy. But, you guys it was great. It was like, hey, let's get you in direct hire. It happened immediately. I knew I wanted to do cyber. I was working with Aaron McKinn, Big Country.
Yes, sir.
Who we were right next to each other downstairs in the basement. But I started working with Aaron McKinn. He put me in front of a couple cyber companies. There was 2 that were BDR positions. And then I found out Darktrace was an AE position. I was like, I want Darktrace. And I told Aaron, I'm like, I don't even want to interview with these other companies. And I wasn't even I was kind of looking at Salesforce a little bit, but I knew I wanted to do cyber. So I pulled out of kind of process of Salesforce, pulled out of these other places, really hitched my wagon at Darktrace. I burned all the boats. And I ended up being hired at Darktrace as an account executive. I started in October 2021.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I was an AE with a $2 million bag, finished training the week before Thanksgiving, which is just like a terrible time to start prospecting.
Jumping right in. Right?
Head first, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's for me the best way to figure it out. Just go deep. Figure it out, right?
It's a lot, though.
It's certainly a lot. And I didn't do well. I closed one deal.
What was your territory?
What I have had like Missouri, Indiana, Florida, Tennessee, Georgia. I can't remember how far north it went. Virginia, Maryland, of course, DC. It was a pretty big territory.
Okay.
But like I didn't know how to territory plan. I wasn't doing very well booking meetings at first, and then we had a company party. I ended up speaking with some BDRs kind of towards the end of the party. I would say, hey, you guys are obviously very good at what you do. You mind helping me? Because I suck. And we would do blitzes together. We would do call blitzes together. I think at the time it was virtual, so we'd hop on calls and I'd listen to them talk, stuff like that. Started booking some meetings. I was actually one of the best self-booked meeting setters in the region at the time. I think one quarter was like I got number one twice, so essentially I was number one that quarter. But still, like I didn't know how to transition the meetings to like having customers join our proof of concept. Then finally, I got a new sales director. My director left, went to Okta, got a new director, Catherine Eckhart. She taught me a lot. She was fantastic. Ended up, I had a meeting with the CIO of an organization. It was the first meeting. And I was like, wow. I was just like, okay. It was like me and him. And then like he wasn't giving me much on the meeting, but they say just ask for the POV, like just go for it. So I was like, all right, cool. Next steps are a POV. You have time to be such and such to talk logistics. And he was like, yeah, sure. I was like, what? Ended up closing that. It was 150,000 TCV, which was awesome. First closed deal. That feels way better than booking a meeting.
Yeah.
That was fantastic.
That's a significant roadmap.
It was
150K deal?
Yeah.
Your first deal?
Yeah.
I'll take it.
That's impressive.
Yeah, with the CIO, I was like, wow, it was a multinational organization. It was wild.
I like how you did this at memoryBlue and you did this at Darktrace.
Mm-hmm.
You found people who were doing something that was working.
Yeah.
And you go talk to them.
Yeah. I mean,
at Darktrace, you wouldn't talk to those people who were booking meetings on their own. You're like, what are y'all doing?
yeah.
Right? And then you just figure out how to do it that way.
Yeah. I mean, like most things aren't novel, right? Like, and so if you find someone that's been successful, ask them how they do it, replicate it, make it your own.
Yes.
Like that's always best practices.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Unless you just hit the ground running and are very good, figure out what's working and then make it work for you.
That's why we like people being in an office here.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
Because people can learn from a person, hear it, see it, puppy, dog, nobody wants the dog.
Yeah. So good.
Right. Like that's all stuff you're not going to get that working from your house.
Yeah.
Earlier in your career.
Yeah, no, yeah, because you don't know how to build those relationships either when you're early in your career.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you're at Darktrace, you close this deal, but you're in the AE role, but the AE role, like, we're ready for it yet.
Yeah.
You kind of, you know what I mean? I mean, that's a big leap.
It was a big leap. It was hard.
The fact that you even got the job is huge.
Yeah,
And then you actually close a legitimate deal with a legitimate organization.
Yeah, there's no customer.
To talk about there, because one of the things we want to talk about is like challenges, right?
Yeah.
And like you persevered through.
I did, yeah. So, I mean, honestly, like, I think I was just still very green. I should have taken a BDR job and kind of worked in, I think doing that and building that skill longer would have probably set me up for success a little more. But honestly, AE skills are very different, and I did close that deal and I was learning and figuring things out. But like the next month was just really hard on the company generally. There were a lot of tough conversations with a lot of people on teams, various teams. My director was like, hey, Craig, you're an asset. We value you a lot. I think you would do really well in the customer success manager role here. And I kind of considered what that role would look like, kind of given one of my good friends was a CSM, given my hospitality background, but I figured that could be later. I'll make like some crazy AE cash, like the numbers on the alumni survey, for some years. And then I'll be a CSM after like having a real nice nest egg. As they say, when man makes plans, God laughs.
Yes.
And I remember having a conversation. I think RJ was like, hey, how's it going? I was like, not great. But I think I can do it. He was like, hey, bro, you have a strong chance to losing your job. But you do have the CSM role that you could, if you might get selected for it. And my family was on my healthcare. I had to make the best decision for my family, which was staying, which was interviewing for the CSM role. I was lucky enough to get it. It was a huge blessing, to be honest, because that really taught me how to add value.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
I mean,
that when people hear that concept, even now, it's hard to struggle. What does that even mean?
Yeah, a lot of times it means nothing.
Well, I know lots of people who say that shit. It means nothing.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's such a buzzword, almost like AI is now. Like, what does it mean? But as a customer success manager, at its most basic form, I realized adding value is just helping your customer. And that's it. And in sales, when you're adding value, you're helping your prospect. A good salesperson is typically going to be an expert more than their prospect, right? Even within cybersecurity, I'm not interacting with cybersecurity professionals. So truly, I know more about cybersecurity than the people I talk to. And so I need to educate them on best practices on the industry and as well educate them on how to use our product, right? Because as a CSM, really, you're kind of in charge of change management, which is hard in organizations, especially if you're spending $150,000 or more. And so I just realized what it means to help organizations. And I'm really still working on just honing that in all the time. That's also why I listen to the wider industry at large.
Yes.
Because I can just have good conversations. I can truly be consultative. And so
his appetite for learning is unparalleled.
I'm a nerd. I'm such a nerd.
No, but you're not. But you take it, the curiosity, and you use it to help.
Yeah.
So you want to help people. It's clear.
Yeah.
And outside of work and in work, right? You know, all the service work when you're at Howard and I'm sure you're helping people when you're in hospitality.
Yeah, of course.
But it's the same thing. You have to help your customers. They want to know what the other customers are doing. That's best practice. And they don't know. They're busy living their lives doing their job.
They have way more to deal with than my company.
So you're smart enough to learn about that. And then you're learning about what other technology, what other cyber products and solution providers are doing and why. And then all of a sudden you're adding value.
Exactly. Yeah, it's been a blessing, to be honest.
You added a lot of value in that job. You were the top. You were the top, right?
I'm doing well. I didn't quite hit president's.
Okay, not quite.
But I mean, I had a monster quarter. I hit 300% of quota. Q4. I've been speaking with my director about a 7-figure quarter. He was like, Craig, I know you can do it. And then just really with enough time in the role, building pipeline, better understanding our product, better understanding how to add value, processes. Out of a $325K quote, I closed $1.25 million.
Yeah.
A real nice check.
Yes.
Real nice. It was very fulfilling and rewarding. The check I got, I'll be candid, it was $90,000. I think people talk about tech money, but if people don't explicitly say what it is, you don't really know. You don't know what bonuses can look like. $90,000 was 2 years of me being an assistant manager when I was at Matchbox. My net was $55,000. Commission checks get taxed crazy for everyone listening. But my net was my general manager salary. And it was so validating and rewarding. And it all went today. It was gone at my daughter's private school. But to be able to make that was a blessing.
How'd that feel?
Amazing. Just rewarding, validating. It was all the work and time and sleepless nights and worrying. Exactly.
Right.
Changing careers is hard in your 30s.
Working with a bunch of 20-somethings.
Kids, who are responsibility, what's that? Because in no shade to anyone, certainly.
Of course not.
It's a jest, but living a life fresh out of college, having a lot of fun with money to blow, maybe with parent support, maybe not, versus a mortgage and a child and a wife. It's a very different reality.
But everything that you had done up until that point of receiving that check, that nice, beautiful check,
led you
to that.
100%.
Who knows if you would have been able to persevere through that? Darktrace is a very successful company.
Huge.
They want people to be successful there.
Yeah.
If you're not successful there, they'll find people that exit in a professional way, hopefully. So it's amazing to see that hill accomplish
Yeah.
and challenge. That's why you want Phenom.
Yeah.
Chris and Marc go for Phenom. I'm all excited you won. He and I just we had over like 140 applicants.
Crazy.
And like we whittled it down to 10 and then we're out.
Yeah.
We don't want anybody getting upset. So it wasn't it's not us thinking that. It's all these people who vote. The alums,
peers,
right? The people who work here now.
Yeah.
So where do you think you want to keep going with this?
Yeah. As the Phenom conversation reminded me, Kelsey Edmonds was also on my team.
Yeah.
She's absolutely fantastic.
What a squad. Company's about
It was stacked. Another career changer.
Yes.
It was stacked. Love Kelsey. Absolutely phenomenal. Ding, 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 ding.
Yes.
Sean Mirastiani was also on my team with Safe Bud. Ding, ding.
Safe.
Don't want to forget the homies, right? Francois Gatsenzi was not on my team, but that's my
Francois, where art thou?
we just had a
Love that
conversation.
guy.
I'll dig in. We just spoke at Howard University.
Of course.
Last week, 2 weeks ago.
You and Francois?
Me, Francois, my buddy Christian, who's at Salesforce, another friend Brittany, she's at Microsoft.
Nice.
Another buddy,
All
James
Howard?
Holt,
These all Howard people?
alums.
Oh, we gotta crack back into Howard.
James is an not AWS, excuse me, my bad, James, don't hurt me. James is like a strategic sales rep at Google.
Okay.
He's the man. He also helped me with my journey. But where I lost, I just wanted to make sure to give shout outs.
Those are great shout outs. So I was talking about where you think you're going to go now.
So where do I want to go? I would love to, I miss direct sales.
Okay.
So I would love to get back into that account executive role. I think the value that I have learned and I think what I've learned in the CSM role will really serve me well in a direct sales role. So I would really like to do that. I don't know if I'm a team lead now. I don't know if I want to necessarily be a director. I like the IC role. Candidly, I've considered like a memoryBlue within the cyber space would be insane. And not from like a BDR aspect, but more so from like a training people on how to be analysts. Because big picture, cyber tech's almost double yearly, and attacks continue to increase in complexity. There's never going to be enough humans to fill the problem. So tech is always going to fill that gap, but you're still going to want humans in that space. So if you could train people on how to be a cyber analyst and then partner them with tech companies, right? Kind of like you do here, and people are going to pay that. Then you can have a recruiting wing, have people come back, learn cloud, things like that. I've thought about that.
Specialization.
I figure that exactly, right? Like
Specialization in cyber. That's why SDRs.
Yeah.
Listen to someone who's been, not me or Chris or your DM or your MD, someone in the industry, right? You weren't even anywhere close to working in cyber. You heard it, right?
Yeah.
C-SPAN or whatever, all this stuff.
Yeah, probably NPR.
Gracious amounts of knowledge you take down, NPR. So maybe get back into direct sales. Maybe start a business or something down the line, right? Or go find a company and build that business for them.
Time is young. Also, I will say, so I currently serve as the global head of our BIPOC ERG at Darktrace. We just launched that. I was doing some DI work here, as you all know. And that is just incredibly rewarding work. I talked about it in the fireside chat, but hospitality in DC is incredibly diverse, people from all over the world, beautiful cornucopia of diversity. And tech is not, and it's well-known within the industry. And it was hard being a Black man, older than everyone, and not seeing myself reflected very well. Here, I didn't see myself reflected a lot in my current company. And then I'm speaking with some leadership about the lack of diversity here, like what's going on, and it feels intentional, even if it's not intentional. It kind of is, because there's a problem, obviously. And through that, the company has a passion for increasing diversity. They see that it's an issue. Leadership told me that they're doing some ERGs and they launched those. They're like, do you want to raise your hand? I was like, at first I was skeptical, but kind of being who I am and my background, I figured, why not me?
Sure.
And it's just really given me the warm and fuzzies. We just launched this week, Wednesday. And being able to share stories, having people telling me like, it's nice to see myself reflected. There just isn't enough diversity, but the stories that you've shared, like during Black History Month, are important.
Yep.
And so, that is another possible career field. I think, again, that self-actualization, making meaning of life, as well. Another legacy I want to leave is just making the world easier for Black people. Being Black in America and worldwide is hard. There's just a lot of unnecessary, unconscious biases, racism worldwide, right? You can go to Africa and see skin bleaching. It's crazy. Yeah. Just a narrative here of like we're in jail, things like that. And again, that's policy. Yeah. It's not deficits of being African American. So anyways, I would just love to positively impact our people. And I try to do that by like talking to Howard, telling people what tech sales is. When people talk about transitioning careers, I'm always willing to have a conversation, lend an ear, provide advice, help with interview prep, what have you. And it doesn't need to be my gain, right? But at the end of the day, for me, that's a way that I can show love to others. Love is a verb, it's an action word, right? People think it's a noun. You're wrong if you think it's a noun. And so that's a way that I show love because I think the world needs a lot more of it.
That's good stuff, man. I can't wait to keep following through on the journey. I mean, you've only been at Darktrace. Yeah. 2.5 years. Coming up on 3 years. Yeah. You got a lot more to get after. I mean, Kendrick. Like Chris and I, we try and get people in. Mm-hmm. We don't care what they went to school. Yeah. Sometimes we don't care if they went to school. Yeah. I don't care what you look like, what your creed is, religion, sexuality. I don't care about any of that. Yeah. But it's hard to get people in here to do the job. Sure. Right? We got Francois. Mm-hmm. We got you. We've had some Howard grads along the way. It's 100%. It's tough. They're a sought after commodity. Right. There's a lot of competition for people who went to Howard. Yeah, huge. But I appreciate you joining us.
Of course. Same.
Sharing the wisdom.
Same. Thank you.
Sharing the wisdom. So what does your wife think about your career change?
Now. I think now she's a fan. She's like, Craig, retire me, please. And I've never even thought about that, right? Like, seriously, I just never thought about retiring my wife. But now I'm in a field where it's possible. Yeah. So, I need to make sure that we're in a place where we can do so, but I do want her to have this space to where if she wants to work, she can. Yes. And if she doesn't, she can focus on her passions. My daughter's in private school, a very good private school, but it's expensive in the DC area. Mm-hmm. Money's a resource. It's a tool, right? And when you don't grow up with it, you don't understand that. But really, I want to get to a place where I can leverage my money, make our lives easier, provide some positive benefits for others. And like I said, make sure that my family doesn't know what poverty is ever.
Well, man, I'll tell you, just during the podcast, I hit up Dennis on LinkedIn. He wrote back. He said, I love Craig. Craig's amazing. I hit up Swaggy P. Everyone's big fans of Craig Allen.
Oh, thank you.
Big fan. Chris and I are. Yeah, I'm glad we were part of that journey with you.
Thank you.
And I know when you're here, it's never easy. Yeah. I know that for the people who work here now, it's not an easy gig.
It's not.
Right. And we're always trying to improve as a company. And people who are thinking about coming to work here, well, I'm looking at that. Yeah. It's tough, but the proof is in the pudding, Sanjay Kumar.
It's worth it.
It's worth it.
100%.
If you put the time in, and that's what we want to do too. We want to get the word out to people like you who are underrepresented part of tech.
Yeah.
It's clear, right?
Yeah.
That it's an amazing industry. Of course. You want to get in and retire your wife, you can do it. When Kendrick interviewed here, and I was talking to him about people making $100,000, mm-hmm. He said, I never even knew anyone who had made $100K, and I thought you were lying.
Yeah.
He thought we were lying.
Yeah.
Right. And he only ended up working here because he was doing Uber before he got out of school. And one of our clients told him about memoryBlue, and he came in. He was like, nobody can make $100K here. Now he runs a whole company trying to get people in the tech.
Yeah.
So
we make to a first company.
We're putting the gospel out too. We just got to find them and get them in here. And then people need to listen to this podcast and know it's going to be a grind. It ain't going to be easy no matter what your skin color is. It'll probably be harder.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, there have been times in meetings where I'm like, I know the product. I know I can have conversations as good as my coworkers. It's my lack of success because I'm Black. Mm-hmm. And that's a tough pill to swallow. And who knows? There would never be an answer to that. No one's going to say I'm racist. No one's going to say I'm not racist, but I watch the media, which has very negative views of Black people, and I believe them because the media is very insidious. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I'm someone that believes change is possible because it's constant, right? Mm-hmm. I believe in myself, and so regardless of what challenges in front of me, I can figure out how to overcome it or kind of pivot, and I think at the end of the day, like, we all need to believe in ourselves. We all need to understand that we're creators and that we can create the reality that we want with enough work, with vision, right? Like, look at this room. This light fixture was someone's idea. The TV screen, the disinfectant, every single part of this started here until someone did the work to take it out of their heads into reality. So we all have that opportunity, right? Are you going to get after it or are you not? Time is your most precious resource. Rest is important, but how are you going to use your time?
Yep.
Or is the actions of you believing in yourself, or your actions going to match that? And when they do, then you have a real nice reality like you two have.
Magic. No, everybody thinks it's magic. They don't see the work that goes into it, right? Or they don't know about, Craig struggling and, so thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
This was awesome.
Love the wisdom.
Thank you.
Love the wisdom.
Thank you. Learned a lot here.
Looking forward to continuing to see you rise.
Same.
Yeah, alum of the year is next for this guy.
Yeah.
100% first Phenom and alum of the year is coming.
There you go.
Good. Oh, we have never had that.
No, I don't.
All right.
Very good.
This is where we ding.
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks for listening to Tech Sales is for Hustlers. Please subscribe and leave a 5-star review after the beep.